If you want to survive in this world, you can't show pain or fear. This world is not kind to weak people.
Dip one. Let's go again. That's a look at Backspot. It's a coming-of-age story that takes a look at the world of competitive cheerleading that premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival last year and is now set for its wide release tomorrow.
Now, the movie tells the story of Riley, a character struggling with the pressures of joining an elite squad just before a major competition. Devery Jacobs plays Riley and joins us in studio this morning to tell us more. Devery, first off, just how familiar were you with cheerleading?
Yeah, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I used to be a competitive gymnast. I actually wasn't a cheerleader in the past, but I was able to apply a lot of the same kind of tumbling. There's a lot of crossover. I think a lot of former gymnasts end up competing as cheerleaders. So it's been a 6.5-year long process in the making. I'm not only an actor in the film playing Riley, but I'm also a producer. And yeah, it's been incredible, the fact that we're finally able to bring it to theaters after this long, and it's coming out tomorrow.
That is so cool, and I think this is a great look at the sport. I was a competitive cheerleader myself.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Wait, what position were you?
I was a base,
nice.
and it's tough. I mean, a friend of mine broke her nose. Yep. Another one actually lost her scent because of it. And it's a tough sport, and I love that this really shows you what it's all about. You show how tough it is physically,
yep,
and the mental aspect to it as well.
Totally. I think that's one of the big differences I learned with cheerleading, is that there's not only pressure that you're putting on yourself, but if you falter or you fall during a comp, your whole team is deducted. So the pressure is enormous, but there's also such a sense of camaraderie. And while we wanted to show how brutal of a sport it can be and the athleticism that's behind it, we also wanted to show that sense of family and ultimately with Riley, show the sense of balance that she finds, this healthier relationship with the sport that she loves so much.
Sense of balance and balance that we're looking at there, being able to somersault again and again in the air. Elliot Page has served as executive producer on this film. Tell us, what was it like working with Elliot?
Elliot is incredible. I had a chance to have a general meeting with his production company a few years ago. I was not expecting him to be on the call, and when he popped up over Zoom, I geeked out. I'm not somebody who usually gets starstruck, but there's specific people whose work just means so much to me, and he is one of them. And I was telling him about Backspot and how we were in the process, and we were having difficulties gathering funding because I think a lot of people didn't quite understand what cheerleading was, or the perspective of being queer people and reflecting the world that I am a part of. But when I was telling Elliot about it, he was super excited and he got involved, and from that point it really opened up so many doors for us, and we wouldn't have been able to make this movie if it wasn't for him and his production company, Page Boy.
Let's talk about queer representation in this, because I love how it just is.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's normal. And I think so often with queer cinema, it's about the coming out story or how hard it is to be gay. And I'm a queer person and I have plenty of conflict even after coming out. And so for us, it was important that the conflict wasn't within the queerness, but within the sport. And all of the parents are accepting of being queer. There's a queer coach. It shows queer people and athletes within community with each other. And I think that's something that has been a story that I've wanted to tell, and also a movie that I needed to see growing up.
Don't you think that's where we're headed? That's where we're moving with
that's the hope.
With our storytelling.
Yes.
You know, for a chunk of time, it was the coming out story, and it was the embracing and the conversations, and now we're moving into this supernatural world where
totally
it's not over. It just is.
Yeah, and it's continuing the conversations. What happens beyond the coming out story? And so we definitely do that with Backspot, not only through these relationships between a queer coach and her cheerleader, but also between Riley and her mom and her girlfriend and this other mentor she finds unexpectedly in the assistant coach. But yeah, it's definitely a tender look, but also fun at the same time. Just as it starts to get a little intense, we winded up with some fun. And yeah, I'm just so proud. It's honestly the role that I'm probably most proud of in my career to date as an actor.
Listen, you are also proud of your Indigenous heritage, and of course we all know about your great work in Reservation Dogs. How important is it for you to continue to find work that you connect with?
It's so important. I think for me as an actor, obviously I'm Ganyagahaga, I am from Kahnawake Mohawk territory. That will always shape my perspective as an artist and who I am as a person. And I will carry that with me in every project that I do. And when it comes to producing, like I did with Backspot, or writing and directing, I think for me it's important to be able to touch on my identities, both as a Mohawk person, an Indigenous person, but also as a queer person. And I think this was the first time I had a chance to really highlight that with Backspot.
It is so great to have you here. Backspot opens everywhere tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great to see you.
Sure.